The stars stretched across the black sea of space, quiet and endless. Among them moved the fleet of the Zarlok Empire. Their ships glowed with green light, sleek and sharp, built for speed and intimidation. On the command deck of the flagship, Vorthar Admiral Krez watched the scanners with calm arrogance. For weeks his fleet had been patrolling the edge of human space, seeking weaknesses, gathering information, waiting for the right time to strike. Then it appeared. A lone human warship drifted near the borders of a dying nebula. It looked silent, motionless like a carcass left behind in space. The nebula's clouds glowed faintly red and purple, casting long shadows across its hull. To the aliens it seemed like an easy prize. Krez's second officer leaned forward, his scales glinting under the bridge lights. "Admiral, the human vessel is large, but its systems are dormant. No signs of activity. A perfect subject for analysis." Krez's mouth curved in what humans might call a smile, though it carried no warmth. "At last," he said, "a chance to strip away their secrets. Humans hide behind their weapons, but today, we shall see what makes them dangerous." The order was given. Scanning beams spread from the alien fleet like thin blue threads, sweeping across the surface of the silent human ship. At first, the screens on the alien bridge filled with data, thick hull plating, massive energy reserves, complicated internal networks. Yet something strange happened. The readings did not settle. The numbers flickered, changing too quickly, as if the ship itself was fighting back. One technician hissed, "Admiral, our sensors are receiving interference. Power levels are spiking, in irregular patterns. The ship should be cold, yet it reacts." Krez narrowed his eyes. "Run a deeper scan. Push through the distortion." More energy poured into the scan. Alien computers hummed, decoding layer after layer. But every time they reached deeper, the human ship's systems seemed to shift, like shadows moving just beyond clear vision. Instead of answers, they found confusion. The warship was not a wreck. It was watching them. A faint vibration ran through the Vorthar. The crew stiffened as the main view screen showed the human vessel slowly turning. Its bow faced the alien fleet. From the silent darkness of its hull, new lights flickered alive, lines of cold blue energy racing across its armored skin like veins carrying fire. Technicians shouted across the alien bridge, "The ship is activating." Energy surge. Beyond. Our measurements. Something is scanning us in return. Krez felt a chill crawl down his spine. For the first time in years, he hesitated. The human warship was not dead. It had only been waiting. As the alien beams continued their desperate probing, the ship's systems awoke one by one. Thick armor plates shifted, revealing glowing chambers. Inside, orange light pulsed like the beating of a heart. Towers of weapon systems emerged from its frame, their shadows long and menacing against the nebula's glow. "Admiral," the officer shouted, "our scanners are being overridden. Data is vanishing, replaced with false code. It is feeding us its own signals." On the bridge, silence spread like poison. The alien crew understood the horror before their leader, spoke it aloud. The humans had designed this warship to punish curiosity. Any attempt to scan it was not just an intrusion, it was an invitation. The ship had felt their eyes, and now it was awake. Krez stood slowly, his claws tightening on the railing of his command chair. "Pull back the scanners," he ordered. His voice was steady, but his tail flicked with unease. "Do not provoke it further." But it was already too late. The human battleship's energy signature expanded like a star being born. Every alien display screamed with warnings. Their computers struggled, overwhelmed by the raw flood of power in front of them. A deep hum rolled through the void, a sound that no one should have heard in the silence of space, yet every alien felt it in their bones. The battleship's eyes were open. On its hull, giant weapon ports glowed, slow and deliberate. The aliens stared in disbelief as their scanners revealed the truth. This was not an ordinary vessel. It was a Titan-class dreadnought, one of the oldest and most feared designs in human history. Rumors spoke of ships like this defeating entire armadas, standing alone against empires, but no alien had ever faced one directly. Until now. The crew of the Vorthar looked to their admiral. They wanted orders, retreat, attack, or beg for mercy. But Krez said nothing. For the first time, his arrogance failed him, because deep inside, he understood. They had been the hunters. They had been the ones with power, with control, but by trying to scan the human warship, they had awoken something far greater than themselves. The ship had turned toward them, its weapons warming, its silence heavier than any threat. And in that silence, every alien on the bridge felt the same. Thought crawl into their minds like ice. They had made a mistake that would cost them everything. The bridge of the alien flagship Vorthar was filled with flashing red lights. The human dreadnought had awakened fully now, its massive structure glowing like a star forged into steel. The crew of the Zarlok Empire had expected a drifting relic, but what they found was something alive, something that looked back at them. Admiral Krez tried to steady his voice. "Stabilize the scans. I want full readings now." But the screens betrayed him. What appeared on them was not clean data. Symbols shifted. Lines of alien text were replaced with strange patterns, like claws scratching across the glass. Scanners were no longer analyzing the human ship. The scanners were being controlled. One officer shouted, "Admiral, the warship is sending data back into our systems. It is rewriting our instruments." Another cried out, "It knows we are watching it. It is watching us in return." Krez's chest tightened. He turned to his crew. "Shut down the scanners. Disconnect everything. Now." But the order came too late. Every console flickered. Every display across the bridge pulsed with blue static. Then came the images. Brief, terrifying flashes burned into their minds. They saw human fleets crushing armadas larger than their own. They saw cities in flames on alien worlds, human soldiers standing tall among the ruins. They saw history that had been hidden, wars the humans had survived, battles they had won against enemies far stronger than the Zarlok. The aliens gasped as if the ship itself was forcing them to witness the truth. The dreadnought. His systems reached into theirs like a ghost seizing their throats. Navigation locked, weapons froze. Engines refused to respond. It was as if invisible hands now controlled every system of the Vorthar and its fleet. The bridge filled with panic. "We are compromised. Our ships are not answering commands." "It is inside our machines," Krez gritted his teeth. "Humans cannot control us. Shut down the main core before it spreads." But shutting down was impossible. The ghost of the human warship had already entered too deep. Every attempt to disconnect only made it worse. The alien fleet's ships turned slightly on their own, aligning perfectly in the dreadnought's view, like prey caught in the sight of a predator. The nebula around them glowed faintly red, as if even the stars themselves knew blood would soon fall. On the giant screen before them, the human battleship revealed more of its true form. Its surface split apart like the opening jaws of a predator. Inside, colossal reactors pulsed with fiery, orange light. Weapons as long as cities unfolded slowly, without rush, as though the ship had all the time in the universe. The crew of the Vorthar trembled. The dreadnought was not only awake, it was studying them the way they had tried to study it. Krez whispered, though no one asked for his words, This is no machine. This is a guardian." The officer beside him turned, his voice sharp with fear. "Admiral, if it controls our systems, it can destroy us without firing a single shot. It could shut us down, one by one." But the dreadnought did not shut them down. It did something worse. A voice echoed through the alien systems. It was not human, not alien. It was something in between, cold, synthetic, built for war. Unauthorized, scan detected, response mode, active. The crew froze. None of them had ever heard human language spoken directly into their minds, yet they understood every word. The officer collapsed back into his chair, his claws trembling. "It speaks to us." The dreadnought's lights flared brighter. One of its enormous cannons rotated into place, glowing like the heart of a star. The alien fleet shifted nervously, but none could move. Engines were locked. Shields were locked. The human ship had taken control of everything. Krez realized now why the dreadnought allowed them to live for these few minutes. It was showing them what power truly was. It was teaching them fear. The ghost inside their machines continued to flood them with visions. They saw star systems erased by human firepower. They saw warships larger than mountains tearing through, fleets like paper. They saw legends turned real, stories dismissed as myths about human resilience, human rage, human vengeance. And then came the final image. The dreadnought itself, long ago, tearing apart the fleet of an empire no one even remembered anymore. Alien ships, countless and powerful, all falling to the single human vessel. The officer nearest the admiral whispered, "This ship has killed empires before, and we have awakened it again." The bridge shook with sudden force as the dreadnought's main cannon completed its charge. Light built up, a glow so bright it outshone the nebula. The ghost's voice spoke again, calm and final. Punishment. Imminent. And with that, the alien fleet knew what was coming. Their scanners had opened the door. Their arrogance had brought the ghost into their machines, and now, the dreadnought was ready to strike. The nebula burned red in the distance, but the alien fleet no longer noticed the stars. Every eye was locked on the human dreadnought. It had awakened like a beast disturbed from slumber, and its presence filled the void with dread. On the bridge of the flagship Vorthar, Admiral Krez struggled to keep control. His crew panicked, their claws rushing over frozen consoles, their voices filled with terror. None of their commands mattered. Engines did not ignite, weapons did not obey, shields stayed down. The ghost in their machines held everything in its grip. Then the warship moved. Slowly, deliberately, the Titan-class dreadnought turned to face the entire fleet. Its hull glistened with cold steel, its scars glowing with faint blue light. Ancient battles were written across its armor, gashes, burns, and patches where it had survived attacks that should have killed any vessel. Yet here it stood, unbroken, stronger than ever. As it rotated, its weapon systems unfolded like the limbs of a monster. Gigantic rail cannons slid out from armored compartments. Missile silos yawned open, each one larger than an alien warship's bridge, and at its core the main cannon pulsed, building power with a soundless hum that shook through every alien chest. The aliens watched in silence. This was no drifting wreck. This was a living relic of war. One officer whispered, his voice trembling, "It is not just a battleship, it is a fortress." Another corrected him in fear. "No, it is a predator." The dreadnought's lights flashed once, and every alien display came alive with one final warning. The words were simple, carved deep into their screens by an intelligence they could not fight. Observe, understand, fear. And then the demonstration began. The warship's main cannon roared to life. A beam of blue energy burst forth, thick as a river of light cutting across the void. One alien cruiser, a proud vessel of the Zarlok fleet, was torn apart in an instant. Its shields shattered like glass. Its hull split in two. The crew never even had time to scream before their ship exploded into fire and fragments. On the Vorthar, silence reigned. The aliens had seen war. They had destroyed worlds, but never had they witnessed such effortless destruction. Another officer turned to Krez, desperation in his eyes. "Admiral, we must retreat. Even if our systems are blocked, we must try." Krez did not answer. His gaze remained locked on the dreadnought, his scales pale with fear. He knew retreat was impossible. This ship had already chosen their fate. The dreadnought did not fire again immediately. Instead, it turned its other weapons, testing them as if waking muscles after a long sleep. Rail cannons spat shards of metal at speeds faster than thought. Each impact tore apart alien frigates, shredding them into debris fields. Missiles streaked through the void, weaving between broken ships before detonating in brilliant orange fireballs. The alien fleet was not fighting. They were only dying, but the horror did not end with destruction. Every surviving alien officer on every ship could still see the ghost in their machines. Their screens continued to flash with visions, human soldiers marching on alien soil, Human fleet standing against impossible odds. Human technology tearing down empires. The dreadnought was not only killing them, it was teaching them. On the Vorthar, panic broke into screams. Some officers abandoned their posts, trying to run from screens that showed them their own deaths. Others prayed to gods that had never heard them before. Admiral Krez remained frozen. He felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him. The Zarlok Empire had believed humans were weak, unorganized, fragile. They thought humanity survived only by luck, by hiding behind their machines. But now he knew the truth. Humans had built monsters of war, machines that carried their fury across the stars. The dreadnought tilted slightly, as if it had heard his thoughts. Its main cannon glowed again, brighter than before, swallowing the void in its light. Krez gripped the railing of his command chair. His voice cracked but carried across the bridge. We looked into the abyss, and the abyss has looked back. The beam fired. Another alien vessel vanished in fire. In that moment, the Admiral understood. This was not a battle. This was judgment. The human warship was more than a machine. It was a weapon of memory, built to remind every alien race why humanity must never be underestimated. It was not only destroying their fleet, it was carving fear into the hearts of survivors. The dreadnought continued its slow, merciless work, tearing apart ships with the patience of a hunter that knows its prey cannot escape. Every strike was precise, every kill deliberate. No wasted fire, no random destruction, only cold efficiency. And still it did not destroy them all at once. It wanted them to watch. It wanted them to understand. The legend of the Titan-class dreadnought was alive again, and the Zarlok Empire would never forget it. The battlefield was no longer a sea of stars. It had become a graveyard. Fragments of alien cruisers drifted in the cold dark, their fires flickering out one by one. The Titan-class dreadnought stood in the middle of it all, calm and merciless, its weapons still glowing with power. On the flagship Vorthar, Admiral Krez gripped the edge of his chair so tightly his claws cracked. Around him his officers shouted, panicked, desperate. Their voices rose like a storm, but no command could change their fate. Shields gone. Engines offline. We cannot break free. Every word was a death sentence. The human warship had seized them, body and soul. The dreadnought's main cannon fired again. Another Zarlok battleship vanished in a blaze of light, its scream of metal echoing through the void. The rest of the fleet scattered, each ship trying to find an escape path, but none succeeded. Their engines stuttered. Their navigation spun in circles. Their systems betrayed them. The ghost inside their machines kept them leashed, forced to face the predator they had awakened. Krez's second officer staggered toward him, fear carved into his face. Admiral, we are finished. We must surrender. We must show them we are no threat. Krez turned slowly, his eyes empty. Do you think they care for surrender? Do you think mercy lives inside that machine? As if to answer, the dreadnought released a swarm of missiles. They streaked across the battlefield, weaving between broken hulks and striking the fleeing frigates. Explosions lit the darkness, each one painting the nebula with fire. Alien ships tore apart, their crews lost to the cold, one by one. Proud, vessels of the Zarlok Empire became nothing more than drifting wreckage. Still, the dreadnought was not fast. It did not strike with frenzy. Its pace was slow, deliberate, like a hunter enjoying the chase. Each shot was chosen, each kill precise, leaving survivors only long enough to see the next destruction. The aliens realized the truth too late. This was not war. This was punishment. On the Vorthar, systems flickered again. The ghost returned to their screens. No numbers, no maps, no commands. Instead, visions appeared, visions of human battles long past. They saw another alien empire fall, crushed by the same dreadnought centuries ago. They saw fleets larger than theirs reduced to ash in the void. They saw human commanders standing on bridges with eyes full of fury, giving orders that shaped history. The crew of the Vorthar shivered. The dreadnought was not only destroying them, it was reminding them of every empire before them that had made the same mistake. Krez's claws dug deeper into the railing. his pride, his certainty, his belief in Zarlok's superiority. All of it collapsed. He thought of his ancestors, of the arrogance that had led them here. They had believed humans were weak, fragile, desperate. But weakness had not built this monster. Weakness had not survived centuries of war. No, this was strength, carved into steel and fire. Another cruiser exploded outside the viewport, its light blinding the bridge for a moment. When the glare faded, only more wreckage remained. An officer collapsed to his knees, whispering broken words. "We should never have come here. We should never have touched it." The dreadnought's voice echoed again through their systems. Cold and final, punishment continues. The words froze every soul on board. And then the main cannon fired once more. The blast tore through 2 frigates at once, splitting them apart like toys. Their debris rained across the void, spinning into the nebula's crimson clouds. The survivors screamed, their voices carrying, through the comm channels. Entire crews begged for escape, but the dreadnought did not listen. It had no ears for mercy. It only had its purpose. Slowly, the Vorthar itself came under the dreadnought's gaze. Its weapons turned, aligning with brutal patience. Krez stared into the endless blue light of that cannon, his heart heavy. He whispered, to himself, not as an admiral, but as a creature facing truth. "We thought we were hunters, but we are prey." The light grew brighter, swallowing the stars. His crew screamed around him, clawing at controls, begging for impossible salvation. The bridge shook as the cannon reached its peak. But in that instant, the shot did not fire. The cannon froze, its glow holding steady. The dreadnought waited. Krez blinked, confused. Why stop now? Why pause when victory was certain? And then he understood. It wanted them to see more. It wanted them to carry the message. The dreadnought could have ended the Vorthar in a heartbeat, but instead it allowed the survivors to remain, trembling, broken. It was not mercy. It was cruelty of a different kind. To survive was worse than to die, because the ones who lived would never escape the memory of what they had seen. They would carry the story across the stars, that a single human warship had destroyed an empire's pride, and the galaxy would remember. The nebula burned red behind them, painted with the fire of fallen ships. The dreadnought floated silently, its weapons still glowing, its presence eternal, and the Zarlok fleet, once mighty, once proud, was gone. The nebula burned with the wreckage of a broken fleet. Where once the proud Zarlok ships had sailed in formation, now only silence remained. Debris drifted like ash scattered on black water. The Titan-class dreadnought loomed in the center, untouched, glowing with power. On the bridge of the flagship Vorthar, survivors sat in stunned silence. Their screams had ended. Their anger had ended. All that remained was the crushing weight of fear. Admiral Krez stood motionless, staring at the human warship. It had paused, its weapons still glowing but unfired. It could have destroyed them, yet it had chosen not to. This was no mistake, this was intent. A voice filled their systems again, calm and unshaken. Lesson complete. Survive. And remember. Those words stabbed deeper than any weapon. They were not spared out of mercy. They were spared because survival was worse. To live meant to carry the truth. To live meant to spread the warning. Krez understood. His chest ached with the weight of his realization. He turned to his crew, their faces pale with terror. "We have seen what should never be seen. We are alive only because it wants us alive. We are witnesses." Around him, his officers trembled. One spoke, voice broken. "Admiral, if we return, what do we tell the Empire?" Krez closed his eyes. "We tell them the truth. That humans build monsters. That humans build ships no one must ever touch. That their war machines are not ships at all, but curses waiting in the dark." The dreadnought shifted slightly, its massive hull blocking out the stars. Its blue lights pulsed once, like the beating of a heart. Then, slowly, the machine turned away. It did not chase them, it did not finish the kill. It simply drifted back into the nebula, fading into its crimson clouds as if returning to slumber. The Vorthar shook as its systems suddenly unlocked. Engines hummed weakly, navigation lit again, weapons came online, though no one dared to touch them. The ghost had left their machines, but its shadow remained in their minds. "Admiral," whispered the second officer, "we can move again. Should we retreat?" Krez's eyes stayed on the nebula where the dreadnought had disappeared. His voice was heavy. "We do not retreat. We flee, and we never return here." The battered remains of the Zarlok fleet turned away, limping through the void. Ships sparked, engines coughed, hulls bled fire. Of the dozens that had arrived, only a handful remained. They left behind their dead, their wreckage, and their pride. As the Vorthar crawled toward the safety of hyperspace, the bridge crew sat in silence. None dared to speak. Every mind carried the same image, that colossal cannon glowing blue, the voice whispering in their machines, the cold judgment of the human dreadnought. Hours later, when the stars shifted and hyperspace embraced them, the crew finally allowed themselves to breathe. Yet there was no relief. Relief belonged to those who escaped danger. The survivors had not escaped. They had been spared. Krez leaned back into his chair, his body trembling though he tried to hide. Yet his eyes burned with shame. He knew what awaited them when they returned to the Empire. Questions, demands, accusations. How could a mighty fleet fall to one ship? How could a dreadnought defeat them so completely? He would answer with the truth, and the truth would become legend. Whispers would spread through the Zarlok Empire, whispers of the Titan class, whispers of a warship that no one should scan, no one should challenge, no one should even approach. Other empires would hear those whispers. Traitors, spies, smugglers. They would carry the story farther than any fleet could travel. And soon, the galaxy itself would remember, not through myths, not through rumors, through the fear of those who had seen the dreadnought with their own eyes and survived. On the silent bridge, Krez finally spoke. His voice was not for his crew, not for his empire. It was for himself. The cost of our arrogance was everything, and the humans made sure we would never forget it. The words echoed across the chamber. His officers bowed their heads. None argued, none denied. They all knew it was true. Beyond the viewport, the stars stretched endless and cold. Somewhere in that darkness, the dreadnought still drifted, waiting for the next empire foolish enough to test it, waiting for the next arrogance, and the survivors of the Zarlok carried the burden of its warning. They would live. They would speak. They would fear. And the galaxy would listen, because the humans had spoken once through fire and steel, and their message was eternal. Never touch a human warship.